Greetings! I'm back, and boy do I hope we have video, because if we don't, I'm going to be so blue and so much more sad than I have been. I picked these out of my garden this morning, actually out of my mountain, because they grow wild around here. And here in Tennessee, these aren't daffodils. These are jelly jonquils. So if that just doesn't make you feel happy, I don't know what will. So let me put these over here. Okay, well, we have had nothing but technical difficulties all morning. And can somebody tell me if I have any sound? I'm looking for some comments here. Let's see. You're not going to believe this, but I got a message from London, England. Thank you, Steve, telling me that my audio wasn't working. And that's pretty bizarre to get a message from halfway around the world to tell you that you have screwed up something. Yes, we have technical difficulties. I don't see any messages or anything, so somebody type a little thing there and tell me if I'm sitting here talking to myself. I hope not. All right, the question was, are you feeling blue? Are you sad? Are you out of sorts? My guess is, from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing of all my friends, my guess is you are. And if anybody knows me, when I go very quiet, there's something wrong, or there's just something not right. And I'm not one to sit around and, boo-hoo and moan on the internet and say what's wrong, because it's just usually me. I'm just out of sorts. So I took a little while off and sat on the couch and felt sorry for myself. And this morning I decided that it was time to get back on everything and get going. And of course, what did we have? We had all this technical difficulty. Oh well. It just goes to show that if you don't stick at something long enough and stick at it regularly, you forget how to do it, because there are so many buttons and so many things here that it was, things were not going properly. So, as I said, either it's COVID, which we all know we've had just about enough of. I know I have, because my family is in Canada. My mother is 93. She's alone in the house, all by herself. Still has her driver's license, but I can't get into the country because of the laws and the rules and the health situation. So we've all had about enough of being alone. And if we're not going to be blue today, I suggest we be green. Let's be green. Even though this looks a little turquoise online, it is green. The internet will do that to you. So we're going to talk first about photography. And photography is it is always done digitally this time of the year, or this time of the century, whatever. Let me find my first picture here. Okay. And what we have going when we take pictures now, it does not matter whether you are the most highly trained professional photographer or you are just taking snaps with your phone. Every photograph is going to need to be retouched or altered. Not retouch. Retouching is changing the image. Every photograph needs to be altered. Every photograph taken digitally is missing something, usually in the highlights and the shadows. Now, this is a little technical for some of you, but just take a peek, because I'm going somewhere with this. If you know how to alter photographs, the first thing you notice about our little Smoky Mountain hiking adventure here today, out to the Ogle Cabin. This was a family that was here very long ago in the national park. The cabin, amazingly enough, is hi Caitlin, that's my niece, and my great niece is my new baby. She's my grandchild, and I want to see her. Can't. She's in Canada. All right. Amazingly enough, in 2016, when the national park and most of Gatlinburg caught on fire, everything around this cabin burned. There was like a magic circle around this cabin, and everything was gone and black and completely, disintegrated. And yet there stood the cabin. It was something unimaginable. But prior to the fires, I took this picture, and it's lovely as far as being out in the woods. But if you notice our little graph here, we have what is called a histogram. And a histogram for levels is going to tell us how much white on the right and how much black on the left we have in the photograph. And if you notice, we have lots of white because it's going right over to the edge of the page, lots and lots of white. But our midtones and shadows stop just short of where our triangular mark is. So that's telling us there are no darks in this photograph. So what we need to do is take that little triangle and slide it over to give us all of our darks. See how the triangle is now at the end of the histogram? So we have improved. Now, we don't want any more light in this photograph because there's a lot of it, but we now have some deep, rich contrast and some deep, rich shadows. This is part of the problem if you are painting from photographs. Photographs remove the midtones and the dark shadows. So if you are copying a photograph to do a painting, you need to know this, and you need to know how to alter your painting accordingly. Otherwise, you're going to paint it just as flat and ordinary as the photograph. So let me go back here. That's our original. And now we have brought in the deep, dark shadows that are there. Now, here's where things get a little weird. If we can ever get out of the house and get to a trade show or a fair, an art fair, or even if you're looking online on the internet, or if you can get to a frame shop or a gallery or something, take a look at the photography first. We'll talk about paintings in a moment. Take a look at the photography and see what happens with the greens. If the greens become, oops, hang on, turned on too many here. All right. If the greens become this, then we have a problem. And I guarantee you, if you are going to see a show or a gallery or something, this is exactly what you will see if the person does not realize that these are not lifelike greens. The bad thing about a computer is, ooh, I've got a computer. I can punch buttons. I can make things happen. And the first thing they do is go in and punch the intensity. Just drag that little slider that's, you can see right there. It says the green channel at the top, and the middle one says the saturation, which means how much are we going to have of this green, and we just slide that little slider right over, and by golly, we got green. And whether it is a painting or a photograph, if it is this lifelike, it is, in my opinion, don't write notes and letters and hate mail, it is amateurish. Because these greens very rarely appear in life. So pulling the saturation up that far and then selling this as a piece of art, okay, you might like it, you might want that green in there, but it is not realistic. So if we go to all three, On the left, we have the original. On the middle, we have the bumped up greens. Now take a look at the third image. This is something that very few people know unless you come from very old school, darkroom days. If you take a little bit of magenta, pink, burgundy, wine, little bit of reds, and put them in the midtones, put them in the shadows. I have not changed the greens in any way, shape, or form. What I have done is go back into the photograph and add magenta, add a red, a very hot pink to this photograph. And look at the difference it makes in the shadow areas and the midtone areas. It has, and of course I cropped it because we don't need all that top sky. So now you have a photograph that is not professional by any means, but now it shows the highlights, the shadows, the midtones, the greens more realistically. They are not vibrant lime because there's no such thing in life. Let's go back here. All right, so if we take a look at artwork, look at the color scale on the top above the black line. These are the paints that I'm working with. Now, when it comes to green, you don't get a lot of choice. You can buy a million greens and you will still never get what you really want. So in art, you do not want to be painting right out of the tube. I mean, unless you're painting something that really needs to make a statement or whatever. But these are the paints that I'm working with. In the top row, from left to right, we have a very lime phthalo green, a very bright green. That's not a realistic green in life, unless again you're just going to use it as a kicking highlight. We have a sap green, a beautiful emerald. We have a moss, which I don't tend to use very often, only because if I'm mixing sap green with something else, I can get that moss. We then have a viridian, which is still not vegetation color, but a very important color if you're painting portraits. And then we have a deep, rich phthalo green, a very, very deep emerald. That's it. That's the greens that I have in my paint palette. Now when we add in some blues, because everyone knows if we mix blue and yellow, we're going to get a green. When we mix in blues, we have, again from left to right, a cerulean or manganese blue, a very sky blue. We have a royal blue, whether that is a cobalt or a ultramarine blue. And then we have another phthalo blue, a very deep blue. And when we get to the yellow range, you can have all kinds of yellows, light yellow, medium yellow. I prefer the medium yellow because then I can either add white to it and lighten it, or gold. And then you have a yellow ochre, a very earthy wheat color. Those are the paints. None of those are lifelike when it comes to painting landscape. Taking a look under the line, here's something you might not know. Again, we all know that if we mix red and green together, we're going to get, or red and blue together, we're going to get a green. But let's take a look at what happens when we mix sap green and alizarin crimson, that beautiful, beautiful wine color. Mix those two together, and depending upon how much of each color you add, you're going to get a rich, rich emerald dark. You're going to get a somewhat muddy green, which you go, that's not in real life. Yes, it is. Or you can get something toward a brown, and again, it could be brownish green if you add more green. It can be brownish red if you add more alizarin crimson. On the second line, this one is fabulous. I discovered this in high school. Black and yellow. Black and yellow will always make earth greens, organic greens. Look at the row. Depending on how much black you add, you'll get deeper and darker and more toward the black range. More yellow, you're going to get the moss colors. Those 4 colors right there are just fabulous earth tones. And then on the bottom, if you take black, yellow, and our cerulean blue, look at the teal greens you get. All the different variants and all the different shades. And you say to yourself, well, there's no teal green leaves in a tree. Oh, really? Well, let's see. Whoops, hit the wrong one here. That there is. Here's our color chart. These are just snapshots. Look at the top. Look at the variance of the colors from ochres and yellows to moss browns to deep, deep greens to blacks. Look at those colors. They're all coming from the bottom half of the color chart. When we go to the single tree out in the middle of the Cades Cove area, if you are familiar with coming down here, one single tree, look at the differences between the brown, green, yellow grasses to the field, which is a little bit more lime, as are some of the highlights on the tree. But when we look inside that tree, we have all different variants of lifelike greens, as we do as you go down the bushes. And as you go around that landscape, notice that the magenta, the pink, the wine tone that's showing up in the tree trunk, showing up in the deep shadows of the bushes. Just bump the magenta into your landscape and you have created something very, very realistic. Absolutely realistic. Let's go back here. Okay, so in retrospect, let's not be blue today. Hopefully it's a nice day outside where you are. Can't get this in the picture. There we go. It's a nice day outside where you are. It's a beautiful spring day here. Finally, it's still chilly, it's still cold, but I'm finding that everybody is a little out of sorts, and I'm hoping that you won't be blue, that you'll be nice and green, and if you are painting or taking photographs, you will be bumping those greens into something realistic. I am going to, actually, I should ask you for that. I should get you to force me, if you like what I'm doing here online, if you're enjoying just listening or watching me make a fool of myself, whichever it happens to be that day, tell everybody. Get everybody in here to join. You never know what we're going to find. And keep after me. I have people in Pakistan, in England, in Japan, in Canada, and the United States that are either good friends, developing students, people that are actually calling me saying, where are you? You're not online. You know, I want to hear from you. So you keep after me. I'll kick myself in the butt. I'll try not to be blue. And we'll see if we can get this back on track. And hopefully it's springtime in your area and all our little blue feelings are going to go away. And if blue will mean something good, it'll bring out the sunshine. And hopefully it's going to bring out the green grasses and the green trees and the green bushes. And if you are an artist, you're going to experiment with those paints, mix every color with every other color and see what you get, and find those natural greens that make realistic sense. So we were a little late this year, this day being online. I do need to get back onto our Thursday evening and Saturday morning studio stops. Thursday at 4 o'clock from 4 to 5 and Saturday from 10 to 11. I post a link on my business page, and all you have to do is click that link and drop into the studio and chat. And it can be about anything. We can share some conversation or look at some paintings, look at some art, or discuss whatever's going on in the world or in your creative and personal life. So thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for being patient with us with some audio problems. We're going to see if we can, there's 7 places to look for the microphone, and they all have to be exactly where they're supposed to be, or we have no sound. So I didn't see any comments saying we didn't have any sound. I didn't get any more messages from England saying that I wasn't recording a sound. So we're going to stop here. You go have a great day. I'm going to go to work. Caitlin, I'm going to work on my baby's project today because I have got to get that box in UPS and get it to Canada. So have a great day, and I'm going to force myself to make you see me next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Bye-bye.